we see in the Richmond is much more diverse than what we see in the earlier part of the Cincinnatian, in the Udinian and the Maysvillian. So we get a change in lithology, possibly warmer temperatures, things got more tropical, and we see a change in nautiloid faunas. And we get the beginning of the Richmond invasion coming in. You start getting all of these forms trucking in with these carbonate faces. These guys avoid the plague because of all the, maybe it was colder, too cold for them. Things warmed up, the seas started clearing out, and they started migrating in. Streptoceros and Camaraceros are still here, but now they've got a whole bunch of company. This is one of the forms we see coming in. This is Plurorthoceros clarksvillensis. It comes in the upper part of the Waynesville, and it's it's never common. It shows up in the Liberty. Very narrow form with deeper cameri than Streptoceros. More gradually expanding form with these tubular, subtubular sifuncles that don't appear to have any deposits in them. They have these well-preserved, unfortunately not well illustrated, cameral deposits that are of this mural type. They're very distinctive. The only other species we know of Plurorthoceros is Plurorthoceros selkirkensis, which is from this Red River carbonate facies in Manitoba, in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So this is another one of these Canadian guys. And again, in the Ordovician, Canada was the equator, so they were actually tropical folks coming into the Cincinnatian with the beginning or the as the Richmondian progressed. Along with Plurorthoceros, we start getting these annulated longiconic forms. This is Gorbiopsis. These things come in the Waynesville, but they become fairly abundant and common in the overlying whitewater and Saluda facies. Again, these things are longiconic forms, usually pretty slender. They have these raised lyri, but then they are cut by these transverse raised annuli. Very distinctive forms. And these are found also in the Arctic and in out west in the Bighorn and in the Second Value Formation in New Mexico. And here's where we get these weirdo guys, these truncated ascosaroids. All of a sudden, in the Waynesville, we start getting these things. This guy shows up here, Sugartoceros obscurum, and then this form, Probillingscites oxfordensis. We start getting these things showing up again. These things are probably far more common than anybody realizes. Most people would never recognize these things as a nautiloid, as a cephalopod. I mean, they don't even hardly have transverse septa, and these things are so bizarre in their shape. But again, we're working on some Black River forms. Myself and John Catalani is an amateur collector out in hell, he ain't an amateur. He knows more about the things than I do. But we're getting some ancestral forms that show this progression from these irregular longiconic form through something like Billingscites here to something like Sugartoceros with this dorsally developed cameri and these ventral body changes. So far in the Cincinnati, all we found are the mature conchs. We don't find the truncated longicum. They may be out there, we may be calling it something else. So these things come in the Richmond, in the Waynesville, but they really, these big guys come in the Saluda Formation and the Whitewater Formation in southeast Indiana.
And how big are they?
They're not very big. This I got some up here. You can come up afterwards and I'll show you. The Waynesville ones are about the size of a walnut. These guys are a little bit bigger. They're probably, about hand size. Their cousins out in the Arctic, Ordovician platform stuff, they can get up to about a foot in size. So these things are usually small. They're probably far more abundant in the Cincinnati and in the Richmond than we think. It's just that nobody knows what they are. So, freeze this in your mind if you ever go back up to the Route 1 cut and you get into the southern part of the outcrop, start to go up a section in the Richmond, you might come across some of these things. This is another peculiar form we get in the Richmond. This is Lambeosaurus richmondensis. This is a actinoceraud, but rather than being a lonchoconic form with a circular cross-section, this thing is a flatfish. It's an Ordovician flounder. It has a very short breviconic fragment cone, rather wide shell with a wide body chamber here, very narrow cameral chambers here, a large ventral siphuncle with large deposits. And you look at this thing in cross-section, it's squashed. And I got one up here. Again, come up afterwards and take a look at it. But this thing was a flounder, probably laid around on the bottom again. How it snuck up on folks, I don't know. Maybe it scooted around under the surface just like that of the fish. But these things in the Richmond are about, they get about maybe a foot by probably about 3 or 4 inches, a little wide. And their cousins, again in the Arctic, Ordovician, out in Manitoba, are 3 or 4 feet in length and about 2 feet wide. So these things got huge, where the water was a little bit clearer and probably a lot more warmer. These are some breviconic certicones that we get along with the other things in the Richmond. These big guys here are Distoceros. This is Distoceros scheidleri from the Saluda up at the North Cut at the Brookville road cuts. This form here is a smaller breviconic certicone called Haloitoceros aminum. This is from the Bull Fork Formation in Dayton. This was the first nautiloid I ever found. So it's kind of weird. I didn't find Treptoceros, which is the common form, but I found this little curved guy, and of course I didn't know what the heck it was. And it kind of got me into the business of nautiloids. So that thing has special affinities. This is a body chamber here of one of these guys. You can see this well-developed hyponome here, slot here, with these things, again, have what's called a ventral lateral muscle scar, much larger muscle scar than we see in the orthocones. And these things, morphologically, were probably a lot more like modern-day nautilus. It looks like nautilus comes off this. This is the baseline lineage from where the modern-day living nautilus comes from. This is a body chamber of another species of Distoceros eos from the Bull Fork Formation at the Calvin Lake Spillway.
Does anybody think these have anything like the cuttlefish?
Well, that's where I think a lot of nautiloids may have functioned more like cuttlefish and maybe less like coleoid. I think they were hoverers and saltators. Spent a lot more time linked to the bottom than the squids and coleoids, which are more open ocean predators. This is some more of the same. This is Distoceros scheidleri. This is another Distoceros indianensis. I have a specimen of one of these up here you can come up and look at. This is Beloitoceros bucheri, and this is another Beloitoceros adenum. These guys are all from the Saluda in southeast Indiana. There's a